How did you notice you were the least favorite child? Story 1. I always had the feeling neither of my parents were close with me as a teen or adult. There is some bad blood. But when I came to visit in my early 30s, I noticed that they had a ton of family photos lining their hallway stairs, brother and family, sisters. Kids photos, teen photos, adult. Not a single picture of me anywhere in the house. I think at that point I was well aware it shouldn't have been surprising. Story 2. I didn't notice until I was in my 30s. I was heartbroken, and I still am. I honestly came across a conversation between my mom and my sister. I couldn't believe how much they disliked me behind my back and loved me to my face. It took me a few months to approach them, and 3 years later, my mom has since passed and my sister seldom speaks to me, and I don't get to spend time with my niece and nephew. Neither of them took accountability for their actions. My mother wrote me out of her will. I truly believe it is because I am very similar to my dad. They divorced when I was 10, or she was unhappy in her marriage to my dad and possibly didn't want a second child, and I was an accident. I will never know the truth. But my mother made it crystal clear she loved my sister much more than she loved me. She also gave my sister $200,000 while she was still alive to purchase a house. I purchased my home without her helping hand, and I sure could have used it. Story 3. The amount of money and time spent on my sister's hobby, sports, versus mine, arts. Like, I get that sports have competitions, so the money spent on travel ball to get to tournaments every other weekend is one thing. But she also got pitching and batting coaches and equipment. Not once did anyone think of getting me into like an extra art class beyond the regular school classes, and the expensive good art materials was off limits, despite my sister getting top-of-the-line softball bats and cleats and mitts. Anything I ever asked for was always no. I finally confessed I was molested by an older but still also a child relative, and while they did convey this info to that relative's parents, after that it was just never talked about again, no asking me if I'm okay or if I need therapy. I was left alone constantly because I was tired of being drug around to the tournaments and games, where I was left alone anyway because they were cheering her on, so I had to find a way to keep myself entertained. I didn't learn how to make and keep friends because I never found my tribe. And anytime I try to explain these things to them, not as an accusation, but as a "can you understand how these things affected me?" I just get excuses for why things were the way they were. I don't want excuses. I don't even want apologies. I just want them to understand that just go make friends isn't as easy when I didn't learn how because I was always fucking alone. I just want them to see you can spend a child's entire life ignoring them and then act baffled for why they don't behave the same way as the one you gave all the attention to. Story 4. Always had the feeling, when I was younger and going through shit, my parents won't do anything to help me as they felt it was good for building character and resilience. Recently, my dad said he's glad I went through so much and that I can help my sister, younger, out in her time of need. Story 5. It's always been a thing. My mom even admitted as much. She said my younger brother was so much easier because he was extroverted and charming. Now I'm childless and my brother has a kid. We both live very far away from her. She's visited my brother 5 times in the past 4 years. She hasn't visited me once and even noped out of my wedding last January. Story 6. My mom was a single parent, but bought my brother cars, didn't charge him rent, he lived rent-free for 33 years, helped pay rent a few times at his apartment, once he moved out, his car payments, etc. I was expected to pay rent at 18, and if I ever had to live at home I paid rent. I bought my own car, etc, etc, etc. The reasoning? I always knew you were capable. Anyhow, my brother is 50 now and gets mad BC mom isn't giving him money anymore and won't help. A sob story I just can't get behind. Story 7. I have a good relationship with my dad, but the problem is usually with my mom. I cannot do anything right in her eyes. Anything I achieve I get the "why can't you do better?" One day we were peaceful walking and having a nice conversation, and all of a sudden she just stopped and looked at me. She started on how big of a disappointment I was to her. Pretty much how she deserved better on a daughter. How everyone agreed that I was the weirdest one out of all my cousins. How embarrassing it was to have to explain me to everyone. And she just went on and on. I mean, I knew I wasn't her favorite person, I just didn't know how much she disliked me even as a person. I was the first in my family to go off to college. I got almost a full ride. I don't live with my parents. I am fully financially independent. Most of my cousins got pregnant young, either still live with their parents or nearby. They depend on their parents for childcare and at times for economic reasons. I have some cousins that have never had a job. They refuse to get a job or pay rent, so their parents take care of them. Yet according to her, I'm the weird and dislikable one. But if that's her version of what a successful person looks like, then I am happy to displease her. Story 8. I kinda notice that plans are made without me, or I'm an afterthought. I find out about plans later or after the fact. I find out about family news later despite regular calls and asking about it. I try to make an effort to more proactively ask about things, but it doesn't seem to work. I'm just not on the same wavelength as the rest. Story 9. I've always felt that I'm not as important as the oldest and the youngest. The oldest was always right, the youngest were always the ones who got the things I wanted. I was just in the middle, felt ignored a lot. The oldest and youngest were always getting all the attention, and I always had to have them in mind in many family scenarios, which also meant I didn't get what I needed because they needed it more. Story 10. They never hid it from me that I was the least favorite. When I was younger, every Saturday my mum would go shopping with her friend and my dad would take my younger brothers to our grandparents, and I was pawned off on the neighbor until my mother got home. When I was about 17, my parents and my 2 brothers would go on family holidays to Spain, and I was left at home to house sit. About 3 years ago, my mother put the final nail in the coffin when she told me that of all her children, I was the only one she regretted. Story 11. When there were multiple pictures of my siblings hanging on the wall, but I wasn't in a single one. Story 12. I'm the only child my stepmom doesn't make effort to keep in touch with, my dad dodges my calls and texts, and my mom has said to my face before she doesn't care about me, only my kids. But I've known that for ages. Well, that's it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And if you did, leave an emoji of your choice in the comments. You can check out more videos like this onto my channel. Until next time. Bye.